what is blah blah? And I say, well, blah blah is just what forms the contrast with glue glue. So we understand that glue glue means not blah blah, and blah blah means not glue glue. Then it's clear you haven't been told anything informative, right? You don't actually know. If you don't know what blah blah means, me telling you that glue glue means not blah blah doesn't tell you what glue glue means.
If he's omniscient, he knows whether it's a true proposition if he's in a vat, if he's just a brain in a vat or not. So
Yeah,
if he
exactly.
knows that
They
he's,
have to redefine omniscience in order for the
unless I'm understanding something wrong, but that's
No,
how
it's not an explanation for how he knows that to say he's omniscient, right? To say he's omniscient is just
Well,
to
the
read.
reason I say it's because he's omniscient is because to be God, omniscience is required. So if you're asking, can God, a being that definitionally needs to be omniscient, know if he's a brain in a vat? Then I'd be like, well, he's omniscient. Yes, he does know.
Well,
yeah, and that's where J Mike told me I was just begging the question.
yeah, I was just responding to the idea that the reason why, the way in which God knows that he's not a brain in a vat is in virtue of being omniscient. See, because saying that he's omniscient isn't an explanation for how he knows that. It's basically just to reassert the claim that he knows he's not a brain in a vat, right?
Yeah, well, that's the answer to the question that he knows that he's not a brain in a vat. Why? Because of omniscience, and if omniscience entails knowing all true propositions, and God knows that he's not, and that we know that because he's omniscient, then it's not necessarily just begging the question; it's proving that why he knows he's not a brain in a vat.
No, because the question isn't does God know that he's not a brain in a vat. The question is how does he know it, right? So to say that he's omniscient isn't an answer to that question. It's just to
It's not.
repeat the claim that he
Yeah, so
knows
I
that
mean,
he's not a.
what if it was phrased like
It's
by
not how.
virtue of his omniscience, he knows he's not a brain in a vat.
No, but it might be
It's not
true.
how he
You
knows.
could
It's
say that
what he knows.
Yeah, let him finish, Bobby.
you could say that it follows from the fact that he's omniscient that he's not a brain in a vat. But that's not an explanation. Right? It follows from the fact that he's omniscient that he knows he's not a brain in a vat. That's perfectly fine. The issue is the question is how does he
Can you mute
know that he's
JS?
not a brain in a vat?
I mean,
Can you?
I'm not sure. I guess this is one of the times where, at least in my thinking, I mean, Triple B could have a different stance than me, but at least in my thinking, this is one of the times where I would appeal to mystery here and tell you that I can't give you the metaphysical workings of how omniscience works or can be granted or can be actualized, etc. So, I mean, I can't reduce it to some type of like ontological arche for you.
Well, I'm just saying that if you don't have the explanation, then you haven't answered the question, right? Saying it's a mystery isn't an answer to the question, right?
Well,
So I mean
I mean the one
that's
like
sort of
what
the
I can say is that I know it happens. What I can't say is the workings of how it does.
I don't know what you mean when you say you know it happens.
I mean, I would just ask this, Jack. How does perfect knowledge entail like a how? So if you have perfect knowledge of all states of affairs or counterfactuals, how does that entail that there needs to be a how of any sort?
Well, because I take it that knowledge, that it's an essential property of knowledge that the belief in question is justified.
Yeah, so to that, like I said, to that justification, I don't think God needs a justification. Sorry.
But then I don't know what it means to attribute knowledge to God if he's not justified in his beliefs.
Well, again, I went through this with Dog before in like describing knowledge and uh, all these. I would say God has 100% epistemic certainty that
Yeah, but
in true propositions.
certainty is not what's being talked about, right? Certainty is some kind of confidence that somebody has in a proposition's being true, right? I'm
I mean,
not
you could almost
asking.
say God's knowledge is a brute fact, right? So everything that God knows is a brute fact as a true proposition.
Well, I'm not sure what you're trying to say there. You're saying that there's no explanation for why God knows things?
Yeah, so categorically within humanity, we have to apply some sort of justification to claim knowledge on any proposition,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's why the problem of hard solipsism has not been answered, is because it appeals to sensory experience and an external world in order to justify it, right? And so in this idea of knowledge being justified true belief, categorically, none of us can have 100% certainty, or we cannot claim anything as 100% knowledge on any proposition. You would agree with that, right, Jack?
Not exactly.
So what do you think you can apply 100% knowledge on?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by 100% knowledge.
So in talking categorically about humanity,
Infallible.
so talking categorically about humanity, if knowledge is represented definitionally by justified true belief,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is there anything we can know for certain?
He's talking about
But
infallible knowledge.
Yeah, correct. Thank you.
well, I don't have a problem with saying that. Um, I don't have any problem saying that human knowledge is fallible or
Yeah,
anything.
so that's what I'm saying is like human knowledge categorically is fallible, and so we have to have justifications for propositions that we claim as knowledge, or like Bayesian theorem, or something in regards to probability, right? But we don't have, so all of our knowledge is fallible, if we take into account like the problem of hard solipsism, that it may be the case that it's logically possible we're just brains in a vat or whatever, right? And so um, I don't think there is anything within humanity that we can represent as infallible knowledge on any proposition.
Well, I don't necessarily have a problem with saying that human knowledge is fallible, but I'm not really seeing what the relevance of that is.
Sorry, say that one more time, Jack. My wife is
No, that's fine. That's fine. I was just saying that I don't have a problem with saying that human knowledge is fallible.
okay. So
I'm not sure what the relevance of that
So
is.
the relevance is we can't apply standards that we apply for fallible knowledge to a being that by definition has infallible knowledge, as if his knowledge cannot fail. He doesn't require the same type of justification that we require, because our knowledge is fallible. His knowledge would be like ontologically perfect.
Well, I just don't. I'm not really sure what it means to say that God has knowledge at all if he doesn't have justification for his beliefs. I mean, unless by knowledge you mean something other than justified true belief, right?
Yeah, that's exactly my point. I'm saying if we define knowledge as justified true belief, but that definition of justified true belief only applies to fallible knowledge, I don't think it is necessary to apply that definition to infallible knowledge.
I'm not sure what you mean by saying that the definition is not necessary. I'm just saying that if knowledge is justified true belief and God doesn't have justification for his beliefs, then I don't think it makes any sense. I don't see what sense it makes to say that God has knowledge at all. That's all that I'm saying.
Yeah, and
Why would
that's
why
what
would
I'm saying. Why would you have to apply the definition for knowledge that we use, represented by fallible knowledge, to infallible knowledge,
So,
knowledge that
well,
cannot fail.
I don't know what you mean by infallible knowledge, because as I say, you just sound like you're talking about a different concept, right? And so the reason why we employ the same term with the same meaning is presumably in order to avoid equivocations of that kind, right? So it just sounds like when you say God has knowledge, you're just equivocating.
No, I'm saying that deity is a separate category than humanity. And
But,
therefore, where we apply certain definitions, I'm not equivocating. I'm saying how we apply knowledge within our category, it can be represented by justified true belief in a given proposition, but it is still fallible knowledge at the end of the day. We don't have any source for any proposition that is infallible knowledge. Where
well,
I'm saying categorically, deity can have access to infallible knowledge, knowledge that is necessary and cannot be wrong, right? So, knowledge of all true propositions, if it is the case there's a true proposition, then you don't need a justification for that. You don't even need a belief for that. Your knowledge is just perfect that the state of affairs that you know cannot fail and cannot be wrong.
but look, if you're not equivocating, then you're using the same term to mean the same thing when applied to God and when applied to creatures. But then,
Yeah,
if
because
that's the
they're
case, I
separate
don't know what you mean.
categories.
So, so what the term in question is knowledge. So, what's the definition of knowledge such that it can be predicated of both God and of creatures?
Yeah, so I would think like our knowledge is a watered down version, right? Because we have fallible knowledge. All of our knowledge,
That's not
literally.
an answer to my question, though.
No, I'm answering it. I'm saying our knowledge is fallible.
No, but I don't want you to say our knowledge, right? And I
Well,
don't
just
want you to say
creaturely
I don't
knowledge,
want you to
right?
say, no, I don't want you to say God's knowledge or creatures' knowledge. I just want you to talk about knowledge in the abstract in a way that it can be applied to God as well as to human creatures, because that's the only way to, as far as I can understand, to avoid equivocating on the term, is to have a concept that can be applied just as well to God as to human beings without any change in meaning.
So my argument is that God has infallible knowledge,
I'm
and
not asking you.
wait,
I'm not
no,
asking
no,
you for.
listen, Jack.
But I'm not asking you for an argument.
No. Well, I'm saying categorically, I would say God has infallible knowledge, whereas in humans have fallible knowledge.
Yeah,
This
but
is a clear distinction.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question of what you mean by knowledge, right? So that's fine. If you think knowledge is the kind of thing that can come in fallible and infallible forms, that's fine. That's not an answer to the question that I'm asking, which is what do you mean by knowledge?
Yeah, so I would say knowledge in terms. So this is the road I went down with dog. Um, like, sorry, ask your question again. I just
I'm just trying to understand what you mean by knowledge.
Yeah, what I mean by knowledge is going to differ
No,
between
no,
the
no, no. I'm not
categories.
asking you that. I'm not asking you that question. I'm asking you, you're saying you're not equivocating. So to equivocate is to use the same term, right, in two different senses. That is to say, in with two different meanings when applied to two different cases, right? And I asked you if you were equivocating when you say God has knowledge and you say humans have knowledge, and you said no. You're not equivocating. Okay, fine. So if you're not equivocating, that means you're using the term knowledge in the same sense when applied to God and when applied to creatures. And if that's the case, I'm just asking what is that sense? What does it mean to say any being, whether God or a creature, has knowledge? I don't know what you mean by that.
So, don't you think that there's a distinction between the categories, though?
If there's a distinction between the categories, then it sounds like you're equivocating. And you said you weren't equivocating.
How is it equivocating if it's a completely separate state of affairs?
To equivocate, right, is to use...
Yeah, use the same. I understand what equivocation is.
Right. So if it's not equivocation, then the word knowledge, when applied to God and applied to creatures, has the same meaning in both cases. That's what it means not to equivocate on that term. So I'm just asking you what that meaning is.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going in a circle at this point, but like I said, I think there's a distinction between fallible knowledge and
I'm not
infallible
asking you
knowledge.
about that. I'm not asking you about that distinction. I can grant you that distinction. That's not an answer to my question. My question is, what does knowledge mean?
So again, the definition that we apply is justified true belief because...
Okay. No, don't
Wait,
give me the because. Don't give me the because.
no, the
So
because
knowledge...
matters.
No, but you by just... It
Why
is
would
knowledge...
omniscience require justification of any kind?
I mean, I just don't understand what you're doing. I'm simply asking you for the meaning of the term. Why are you giving me a because? I'm not asking you for an explanation. I'm just asking you for the definition.
Yeah, but I'm saying the definition is only applied to fallible knowledge.
But then you're equivocating.
No, I'm just saying there's going to be a separate definition for infallible knowledge.
A separate definition for knowledge, or a separate, or is it infallible knowledge something different from fallible knowledge? Because that's trivial if knowledge means the same thing in both cases.
No, it would be a separate definition for a separate category. So let me put it this way: if we describe knowledge as justified true belief, right? It is a belief. It is not something that we have any 100% epistemic certainty on. It is just we hold it to be the case based off of external circumstances. We hold it to be the case based off the external state of affairs. All of these different things, and we cannot have infallible knowledge, and so that's why we define it as justified true belief.
I'm not asking you anything about the why. I'm just asking you if by knowledge you mean justified true belief.
In regards to how we have got to understand it, because our knowledge is fallible.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you what the definition of the term is.
I'm telling you it's going to be a separate definition categorically.
All right. Is there anybody here who sees the problem that I'm raising?
Yeah, triple B, is there a definition of knowledge that could apply to both categories? Like that there's a
No.
base level? Okay,
Okay,
then you're
that's to
equivocating.
equivocate. That's to equivocate. And you denied that you were equivocating. Fine. So
Explicitly.
now you're saying what I contended at the outset, which is that you're equivocating when you said God has knowledge, right? Okay, fine. We've clarified it. You made a mistake when you said you weren't equivocating. You in fact are equivocating. Great. So now we know that the term knowledge doesn't mean the same thing in the human case that it means in God's case. So we're going to need a separate word, or we're going to need to put like a subscript. We're going to have to say knowledge 1 applies to God and knowledge 2 applies to human beings, and we're going to need to understand what the different definitions are for those terms in each case.
Okay, I don't disagree with that.
Okay, but I have no idea what you mean by knowledge when you say God has knowledge. If you say that what you mean by knowledge in the case of humans is justified true belief, I have some idea of what that means, right? Maybe you need to fill it out more. Maybe justified true belief is not adequate to fully flesh out the concept. But whatever the definition is, that's telling me one thing. And so, what does it mean to say that God has knowledge?
Well, ultimately, I think it would just be an anthropomorphism, right?
Does that mean that you'd have to appeal to some kind of metaphor or figure of speech or um, analogy or something like that? Is that what you mean by talking about anthropomorphism?
So an anthropomorphism is applied to how we understand God's mind. or how we understand God's thoughts, right? And claiming it as knowledge, in representing it as like knowledge of all true propositions. This is as close as we can get using our language, using common language in order to explain it. But again, I think the distinction that's being applied, how we use knowledge here, and how a deity, like not even like an individual God or the Christian God or anything like that, but how a deity would employ knowledge that is omniscient and a knowledge that is perfect, right? A knowledge that is infallible in all ways.
What's
Doesn't
knowledge
have
though?
to be justified true belief.
Yeah, but what is it then?
I would
I
just say
don't
it's
really
equal to
see
truth.
I don't really see how you aren't saying knowledge is blah blah when applied to God.
No, it's just I would say it's anthropomorphic.
Is an anthropomorphism supposed to be some kind of resemblance concept?
Yeah, it's like application of human characteristics to the divine, right?
So,
So like
so
an
you're saying
anthropomorph.
that human knowledge resembles God's knowledge in some way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
But here's the problem, right? I don't know what features of human knowledge are the ones, and in what respect they resemble human knowledge. I'm sorry, divine knowledge. So it really doesn't tell me anything to say that human knowledge resembles God's knowledge. All that sounds
so
like
when I
to
when I
me,
say resemble, let me just clarify what I mean. When I say resemble, I'm referencing that it's a watered down form. So think of it this way: if God's power can accomplish all that power can accomplish logically, as represented by omnipotence, I would say as humans we have power, right? I have a certain degree of physical power, or I have a certain degree of authoritative power, or something like that. I would have a degree of power, but I do not have perfect power. I would say I have a degree of knowledge in what I can understand and how I can learn and how I can adapt and all of these different things, but I would not say I have perfect knowledge. And this is what I'm saying of God. I'm saying we have only a small degree of what God has. And so our knowledge, it leaves us with fallible knowledge. It leaves us with fallible power rather than infallible knowledge and infallible power that would be applied to a deity.
but then it sounds like you're not equivocating. It sounds like you're saying something like, um, we just don't have as many true beliefs as God does, or something like that.
So like just take that word belief.
Mm-hmm.
A belief lends itself to like probability, right? If it's a belief, it's not equal to truth. I'm saying God's knowledge is equal to truth, right? That there's no distinction between God's knowledge and what is true. Whereas in justified true belief is just what we think given the external circumstances or given the evidence that we have to whatever proposition, that we come to a justification or we come to a reason for why we hold the belief as knowledge, but it's still, it because it's fallible, it's just based on probability rather than being equal to what's true.
Are you saying God doesn't have beliefs?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of been my argument, is God doesn't need beliefs, because
So
if
God doesn't have beliefs.
perfect knowledge doesn't require belief or any form of probability. It's just equal to what is true.
Okay, but if God doesn't have beliefs, then it just seems totally obscure to say that God has knowledge at all. If all I understand by knowledge is what you can define, which is something like justified true belief, right? I
But
think
don't
I
you
can
believe?
under.
So don't you believe that belief entails probability?
Um,
You need
Just
to define
definitionally.
belief.
I'm not sure what you mean by saying it entails probability. To tell you the truth.
Okay, so we agreed that human knowledge is fallible. in
Mm-hmm.
its entirety,
Mm-hmm.
right? We cannot know anything is the case because we can't solve the problem of hard solipsism
No,
at
no,
least
that
yet.
I'm not agreeing with that. But if what you want to say is
Okay,
that
so what would
knowledge
you
is
what would you say
fallible,
you have 100% epistemic certainty in?
I mean, certainty, I just understand to be like a level of confidence in a belief.
Well,
Right?
do you hold anything with 100% knowledge, like quantitatively?
I don't think it does. I'm not sure that I would agree that knowledge comes in degrees.
No, no, no. That didn't really answer my question. I'm saying, and someone said this, and maybe this would be a good thing. Define what belief is for me. Is belief equal to knowledge? Like,
No,
okay,
presumably.
okay. So you would agree with me then? Belief is based off of probability,
I'm
right?
not sure we
If
agree
I
about that.
believe, so if I believe something is the case, right? No matter how much evidence I have for the proposition. So if I'm holding a red ball and I say, okay, um, this ball is red, right? I'm looking at it, I'm experiencing it, I see it, uh, but again, it doesn't take into account the problem of hard solipsism that maybe this isn't actually happening to begin with. And so, though I can say with 99.9999% uh, certainty that hey, I'm holding a red ball, I still cannot claim infallibility that I'm holding a red ball.
I can grant you that human knowledge is fallible. So what?
Yeah, so when we're defining belief, we're defining it based off of probability,
I don't know
right? We
what you
require.
mean when you say it's defined off. I still don't understand what you're saying there exactly. If are you
Okay,
saying that? Are you
So,
just saying that it's
so if our knowledge
fallible?
is
Like
fallible,
um, when you say that, um, are you trying to say something like belief is of its nature something that's fallible?
no, so I was asking you what your definition of belief was, and I was trying to just find a common
Well,
ground
I
in
don't think
saying,
my definition is like unusual. I think it's probably like the standard notion, right? It's some kind of propositional attitude of holding. It's an attitude of holding a proposition to be true, something like that.
yeah, but you're not asserting that it is true, like it is absolutely true. Do you assert anything is absolutely true? And if you assert it as absolutely true, I would classify it as not a belief. I would classify it as just direct knowledge, right? So belief, I think, has connotations of saying I'm gauging whatever the proposition is on a probability, right? So if I sit down in a chair, I believe that the chair is going to hold me up because of all of my external experiences with chairs before, right? It is perfectly fine though, and it is logically possible the chair will not hold me up. That there's a
you,
screw that was loose I didn't know, and so it's based on a probability.
But
you're
see,
talking about
I thought you were defining human knowledge. I thought you were defining knowledge in the creaturely case as justified true belief.
Yeah, but I'm still saying that is representative only of fallible knowledge.
I mean,
So I'm just trying to
I,
I
right
mean, you're
now. I'm
not
just trying
really.
to agree on belief.
yeah, but
That
I don't think
belief
you're
is
really defining the
probabilistic.
terms the same way.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Jack. Do you mind a little help? Mind if I help you, Jack?
well, I guess we can see how much damage you do and stop you.
Well, he's talking about absolute truth, but I think what he means when he says that he's talking about let's say something like absolute certainty because I don't think he believes that something is part true, right? Triple B.
So I think it depends. So well, part true. No. I would agree with that. Yeah, you're good.
True, absolute truth is just true. right?
Yeah, absolute
So when you
true.
bring up this absolute, you're
A
talking about
perfect.
absolute certainty.
Yeah, and that's what I said. 100% epistemic certainty.
Well, you
Infallible.
were talking about something being absolutely true, which is confusing.
Yeah. So my point is that as humans, we cannot know anything is absolutely true.
Then,
I don't know what that means.
then
Yeah, you're again you're confusing terminology. You're using a colloquial notion of absolute when what you need to be using is the term fallible or infallible.
I mean, we agree that a belief is the holding true of a proposition, right?
Yeah, but I'm still saying that you're basing it on probability.
I don't know what you mean by that.
So okay,
Is that to
let's
say
give.
something? Is that to say something other than that any belief is fallible?
I'm saying it entails fallible knowledge.
We haven't said anything about knowledge. We were just talking about beliefs. I don't know why you say it entails fallible knowledge.
Well, do you think beliefs are a type?
Because you're
Wait,
accepting it as
okay.
true.
Do you
Wait,
think beliefs are a type of knowledge, Jeff?
was that Danny? Oh, sorry, I must have just misheard you. Say
Do you
that again.
do you think beliefs are a type of knowledge?
No, I mean that's not how I was. I was understanding you to say that knowledge is a type of belief.
No, I'm saying beliefs are a type of knowledge. So I'm
Well,
saying if I have a
if
belief
you
in if I
understand
have a belief
knowledge,
in something.
well, see, well, that's very confusing because if you understand knowledge as a, as justified true belief, I don't understand what it means to say belief is a type of knowledge.
yeah, same.
So if you believe something, would you say it's a type of knowledge?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, so give me a belief that you have that is not knowledge.
I might believe that that I don't know that there's a
You believe you'll be around
I
tomorrow.
might believe that you're thinking of the number 3 right now, right? Or you were like 10 seconds ago.
Okay. So wouldn't you say that that comports to uh, a state of your mind that like it's something like if you're defining knowledge as it's got to be true. That's what I'm just trying to understand.
But look,
What?
it doesn't seem like you're seeing the problem, right? It doesn't make sense to say the definition of knowledge, or at least part of the definition. Maybe you want to add further conditions. I don't know. But let's just say the definition for simplicity's sake. It doesn't make sense to say the definition of knowledge is justified true belief, and what belief is a type of knowledge.
no,
That just doesn't make sense. Do
it
you see
doesn't.
why?
Yeah, I understand, and I may have misspoke.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of um because I think what I was doing is I'm thinking of like beliefs that we hold. I don't know. I've never thought about it on this plane before. So
I'm
if I
sorry.
hold,
Look, I want to
let me just say
apologize
I
to
hold a
you.
belief that is true, right? Let's say
Okay.
I hold a belief
Mm-hmm.
that uh, Joe Biden is the president of the United States right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a belief I hold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, now, actually, let's even make it a little better. Let's say I'm in a different country and I believe that so and so is the president of the United States, that President Biden. But my justification for that belief is only that I've been told Biden is the president of the United States. I'm still that belief is a part of knowledge. It's something I'm claiming as knowledge. It's something I'm claiming to know, even though I don't know it for certain. If a belief is something you claim to know, I can't see how it's not a type of knowledge. But I also recognize that if we're defining knowledge as justified true belief, then
Yeah, but
Then
see,
you
what?
the
see what I'm
problem is
saying?
sometimes, I mean, if you're using some kind of like uh, sort of common, sort of everyday concept, uh, some ordinary concept of belief, it seems clear that belief is not a type of knowledge because there are times when we would say, I don't know it, but I believe it, right?
Yeah, so I mean, like the easiest example would be like my belief in God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know it for certain, but I believe it to be the case. I believe God does exist. And I would say that belief is a type of knowledge where it's not
But if you say belief is a type of knowledge, you're just going to have to redefine knowledge from the way you were before.
yeah, and that may be the case. I don't see how a belief that you hold, like, so if someone were to ask me, "Hey, do you believe God exists?" I would say, "Yes, I believe God exists." So I'm making a claim to, yes, I believe it is the case, God exists. I'm making a claim to know something. Um, I can't see how belief is not a type of knowledge, but I also agree if we do that, we have to redefine what knowledge is.
Yeah, but think about this, right? Just in case you want to use the ordinary concept, because I think it would be a little surprising for you to go in the direction you're going. Um,
Well, I'm thinking about this like not in terms of theism. I'm thinking about this in terms of just semantics, basically.
right, because what I'm saying is that it's a very commonplace thing to say. Well, I believe that, but I don't really know if it's true or not, right? That's a very natural thing to say, right?
Yeah, it would be like a uh yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
So if you're tracking an everyday notion like that, then I don't think it really makes sense to say that belief is a type of knowledge, because in that sense of belief, it seems like it's clear that you can have beliefs that are not known to be true, right?
But that's the point of having infallible, or that's the point of having fallible knowledge. We cannot know anything to be true.
Oh, but see now
Well,
that's that's a very strange thing to say, because to say that knowledge is fallible is not to say that you don't know something.
Well, with what degree,
And
right?
at least ordinary, at least I'm just trying to. I'm using some kind of standard sort of meanings here. So, like a standard meaning of knowledge is going to be something like justified true belief, right? Like
sounds like he's
a lot of people understand knowledge as something like justified true belief. So let's say knowledge is justified true belief, right? Now I could say all human knowledge is fallible, which is just to say that uh, all beliefs.
Exactly, cutting out.
Oh, sorry. Is it better? I'm on.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's better.
So if I say all human knowledge is fallible, um, and I'm using, so if I say all human knowledge is fallible, and I'm using knowledge in that sense, well, I'm just saying that all human beliefs that are true and are justified are fallible.
But I would still classify them as a form of knowledge. It's fallible knowledge,
Yeah,
right?
but
So,
what you were saying was is that we don't know anything if our knowledge is fallible, and that's a different claim.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I'm
that's a
saying we
claim of
don't
certainty.
absolutely know everything. So we do not have an absolute.
Yeah, but when you say you
In,
do not have absolute knowledge, are you saying anything more than human knowledge is not infallible?
no, I'm not saying human knowledge is infallible whatsoever. I'm saying it's fallible,
Not infallible.
Not infallible.
not infallible. Okay, I apologize.
That's
So That's where I asked you the question. I said, okay, what do you know that is infallible?
Yeah, but look, I don't have a problem granting that all human knowledge is fallible, right? Like I
Okay.
don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to think about it, but I don't. It doesn't seem to me like you know that I need to contest that point, like that anything turns on me contesting that point. You know, so I can grant you that. I can say, yeah, if by knowledge we mean something like justified true belief, uh, in the case of human beings, right, all human knowledge is fallible. I can grant
You're cutting
that.
out again, or I think Hades falling asleep or something.
Oh,
I
sorry.
think
Hey, would you like to change topics? We could do this another time if you. Oh,
I
you
think
just mean
No,
that
not at
she's.
all. I'm enjoying it. Come
Oh,
on,
oh,
continue.
oh, all right. So yeah, so that's fine. I can grant you that all human knowledge is fallible, right? Now you might want to say, well, divine knowledge
Okay, so we would
is
agree on that.
fallible. Yeah,
So
you might say divine knowledge is infallible, right?
yeah, and that was kind of my argument earlier. But I wanted to focus on this belief being knowledge thing just for a second,
All right.
because
Can I
that's kind of
interrupt for
where we
just a
were.
sec there?
can
Triple B.
well,
Yeah.
You keep on using colloquial usages of terms, which Jack doesn't readily pick up on. Like when you say, but you don't know something is the case.
I
That doesn't make sense to Jack because Jack is using the philosophical understanding what you mean by the term know, which is different from what you mean by the term know. Because when you say, oh, you don't know it, what you're actually saying is you don't believe something with infallible certainty. But
Yes.
it really
that's not what know means. Know is simply having a justified belief in that which is true.
that's true, right? But it
So
also sounds like
you're
he's
using a colloquial term
But
or a
Jack, you're
colloquial
tracking that,
meaning
right?
that's different from what Jack means.
I think
And so
Jack's getting it.
you need to be careful on making sure that you're not doing that because when you're talking about things, Jack's not automatically going to the colloquial usage that you're meaning. He's going to the philosophical usage that he's so used to thinking in terms of.
Jack.
And you keep on doing it with so many terms.
Does it
Yeah.
sound to you like
So
he's
that
verging on the on KK? Sounds more like he's talking about
Yeah, he might want to say.
knowing that you know,
He
and that's
might
what he means
say.
by this belief being a kind of knowledge.
Yeah, he might want to say that it's an additional condition of knowledge, um, that we know it or something.
That's what it sounds like to me.
But I don't know if that's what he wants to say.
That the not if knowledge is a justified true belief, that belief he's asking you how do you know that belief? That's what it sounds like to me. How do you know that
Adam,
belief is true?
Adam
okay.
knew
One second.
Eve, and
One.
she was found with child. So you can know something
Yeah,
in
whatever.
in an intimate sense, experientially, right? So it's not just colloquial or ontological in that sense, but also experiential.
Yeah, and so going back to this idea that a belief is a form of knowledge, and you disagreed with that, right, Jack?
Well,
Just
the
just
reason
so
why I was just saying that if you understand knowledge as justified true belief, it's not going to make sense to say that belief is a type of knowledge.
Unless you're saying that the belief is a justified true belief.
Yeah, but we're talking about beliefs in general, right?
I know.
Some might be false, some might not be justified. Some might be both false and unjustified, right? So if knowledge justified true belief, those beliefs, the ones that are false or not justified or both, are going to be not knowledge, right?
so if you have a belief that is just a hypothesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a belief that is just simply a hypothesis. So like quarks or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, within like quantum mechanics or stuff like that. So there's people that believe certain things about quantum mechanics and believe certain things about quarks that we've never actually inspected or observed or anything like that. And so if it is the case that it's true, then that belief would be a type of knowledge, but maybe it wouldn't be a type of knowledge if it's not true. So if I believe something that is not true, like unicorns exist, and I hold that as an actual belief, or that like let's do something a little less mythological. Let's do something like the Holocaust didn't happen. Right? There are people that they hold it as a belief and they hold it as a form of knowledge, that the Holocaust didn't take place. And so I would say belief is only a form of knowledge if it is the case that the proposition is true.
Yeah, but that's going to follow from the fact that knowledge is a form of that what knowledge is justified true belief. It's going to follow from that any form that any belief that's not right any belief that will count as knowledge will at the very least have to be true.
So then if we say it is the case that under those constraints belief can be a form of knowledge, then how do we define knowledge at that point?
It's not in conflict with your original definition. The original
Hey,
definition that knowledge is justified true belief. So if you want to say that for a belief to count as knowledge or to count as known, it would have to be true. That's perfectly consistent with the definition. In fact, the definition entails that.
So I mean,
Triple
which would
B.
be the case though? Would it be belief is a type of knowledge or knowledge is a type of belief?
Knowledge is a type of belief.
Yeah. Do you have a piece of paper in front that you can put in front of you? Do you know what a Venn diagram is? Triple B.
I do not know.
Okay. Get yourself a piece of paper and draw a circle on it. Or maybe you can just do this in your head if you got to get enough visual
Yeah,
imagination.
I'm a very visual person.
So draw a circle. That circle represents beliefs.
Inside the
Right. So
circle or the circle
inside
itself?
the circle is beliefs.
Okay.
Now inside the circle, I want you to draw another circle.
Okay.
And inside the circle, I want you to call that true beliefs.
Okay.
And then I want you to draw a circle inside of that one.
Okay.
And actually have this one overlap the circle a little bit. And that's called justified beliefs.
One sec.
So,
I've got to use the bathroom. Hold up.
Me too. Potty break.
Bathroom break, everyone.
And now a message from our sponsors.
Mm.
John Lee, please.
This room is sponsored by John Lee.
John, I have a request. Will you please block me? I want that trophy. I want that trophy to be the first Christian ever blocked in your entire life. Please, for the love of God. I appeal to you. Will you block me? Because you said Tom Rabbittt was the only person in your entire life history that you've ever had to block. But as you know, he's just an atheist. Please give me the distinction of
That's
being the first Christian you've ever blocked. I'll have to
just
settle for a second place trophy, but it's still gold in my mind, and it will
Profess.
be held high on my right. Only profess. I got it. So I'm really an
alleged.
atheist in your estimation. Yes, I know this.
okay. So triple B. Now, so you got two circles, one of which overlaps the other inside the larger
One
circle.
sec, JS. Making chocolate milk. Hold up.
No worries.
John responds, dignified silence.
John thinks I'm an atheo-Calvinist.
Mm.
I
That's
was
what
one of
Bubby
those.
claimed to be. Bubby was the original atheo-Calvinist.
All right, who's eating?
Me?
Bowl of cereal sounds like.
No,
Soup.
it's rice pudding.
Oh,
Tapioca. They don't do rice
That's even more
pudding
disgusting than
too
soup.
much in Japan, but they put rice in just about everything else. But they do have, they love custards here.
boy, you are grubbing.
Yeah,
How
Jeff's
many?
going to town on that tapioca.
Jack,
No,
Oh,
I'm
Jack.
slow
scraping
Jack.
off.
down, bro.
I'm
Jack's on.
scraping off the what's on the bottom.
Oh, I thought you were eating, bro. I was like, damn, slow down.
No, I pretty much ate it all, but I guess this is sort of like what's called neuroticism, where you don't feel satisfied if there's like something that you feel like you could
Yeah.
get onto the
You're
spoon.
going to lick the bowl?
What did you
Oh,
eat, Jack?
rice
Do,
pudding.
do you ever lick the bowl? Sounds like it's
No.
what's coming.
I mean, I've done it before, but probably not in a long time.
All right,
Yikes.
that's a bit
What the
much.
fuck is
That's what he
happening?
What is
does.
this? One of those?
All right, Triple B.
He said he was
That's
going to
a
No,
bit of
no,
chapter.
ASMR.
I'm back. Don't mute. I'm here.
Little bit of ASMR there.
Yeah, that's what that was.
I was stirring chocolate milk. Listen,
Just right.
listen.
Okay.
You want some
Oh,
tapping?
Triple
You
B.
want some?
Stop whispering, it's creepy.
All right, so you got the big circle.
Hey, I've
That's
been told
beliefs.
I have a very sultry voice when I whisper.
Okay, stop.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so you got the big circle. That's beliefs,
okay,
and
go ahead.
inside that big circle, you got two smaller circles which overlap each other. One of them is true beliefs. The other one is justified beliefs. So where those two circles overlap, inside of beliefs, that's knowledge.
That's a good. That's a good. That's helpful to put it in terms of a diagram like that.
Okay.
So you could see justified beliefs as a subset of beliefs. You could see true beliefs as a subset of.
You cutting out, Jack?
You could see the intersection of those two sets as.
Jack, you cut out for
Sorry,
like
I was saying
20
you could
seconds.
see. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was saying you could see true beliefs as a subset of beliefs. You could see justified beliefs as a subset of beliefs, and you could just say that the intersection of those two sets counts as knowledge.
Right. Okay.
So as an example, you could have a justified belief which is false. Like you might believe that Joe Biden's the president of the United States, but it turned out that 2 hours ago he died and they swore in the vice president as president.
Or it's
So that'd be
actually
a justified
Obama with an
belief,
ear.
but it's
It's
false
actually Obama with an earpiece in Joe Biden's ear.
or something. But anyways,
Yeah.
Banana.
so that could be a justified belief that was false. Or you could have a true
Yep.
belief, like let's just suppose God exists and you believe that God exists, but you don't have any good reason to believe that God exists. That would be a true belief, but not a justified true belief. And so that wouldn't be knowledge.
I like how you just kind of snuck that in there, JS.
No, I'm just saying as an example, because I don't know whether God exists or not. So, I can't say that I have knowledge of whether God exists or not. I'm agnostic.
No, I was saying you snuck in. You have no good reason to believe this
Oh,
is
yeah, that's what I'm
justified.
saying. You have no justification, no good reason, no justification to believe. So now you could say that God, in terms of like, let's say God exists and God has infallible knowledge, or not infallible knowledge, but infallible beliefs about what is. Now the question is, does he have a justification for those beliefs, or does God simply hold those beliefs as for no justified reason? He just happens to hold these beliefs, which happen to be true somehow.
No, I mean I would just so like
So
if we're using the diagram, I would just say there is one circle that is equal to all of God's knowledge, and his knowledge is perfect to where.
Where would that knowledge be?
What do you
Where
mean?
would that circle? Where would that circle go inside the circle of beliefs?
No, I'm saying either true beliefs or justified beliefs would not be included within the circle. It would just be perfect confidence or something to that effect.
What?
Okay, so so God would have perfect confidence because God knows that He knows everything. So that's just confidence. That's just the psychological state of God, that He has confidence about his entire knowledge. It is full and complete knowledge.
Yeah, maybe confidence was a bad word. So I would just
So
say, like within this diagram view, there would only be one circle that is represented as God's, like the totality of God's knowledge, and that
okay, so
true
stop.
belief or
Don't stop.
justified
Stop.
belief is not
Stop.
necessary.
Stop. So when you say God's knowledge, you just included just that little subset that's the overlap of the justified and true, because that's the definition of knowledge, is justified true belief. So it's just that little tiny subset in the middle. So
No,
when you
I'm
say
saying
God's
that subset
knowledge,
wouldn't be necessary.
well, what I'm
Like
saying is
that's
when you say God's knowledge, you're saying that God has justification for his belief that he knows everything, because that would be something that he would have to know that's actually true. So he'd have to have justification for why he knows that he knows.
so. Why would he have to have that justification? And I've got
Because
to go
that's
to
the
bed. I've got to go to
definition.
bed here in like 2 minutes.
Because that's the definition of knowledge, and for no other reason.
And that's what I was saying. I would say that.
Well, so no, just stop for a second and let that sink in, because I don't think you're getting it. So the only reason
No,
why
I
it would
understand what
be
you're
knowledge
saying.
is
I'm just
because of the definition of what knowledge is, not because of what God knows or what God believes, not because of the breadth of information that God believes, which is all true. So
no. So
you're used to thinking of knowledge in terms of, oh, all these things which are actually true that I happen to believe with absolute certainty and confidence. But that's not what knowledge means in a philosophical sense.
yeah,
And so that's the problem that you're running into, is you're dealing with the colloquial understanding of what knowledge means, but that's not what the philosophical definition is.
no. So the view that I'm representing, and this is where I feel like I'm going in a circle. So I'll just say this, I guess, one last time, and then I'm gonna head to bed, and we can continue this some other time. I've enjoyed the conversation. I think it's been enjoyable. I don't know, but the idea of God's knowledge is on a plane that is higher, or well, maybe not higher, but it is on a degree that is greater than ours.
But I don't think that he ended up in a good place.
Well,
Because, like, why ought God believe that his knowledge is infallible if he has no justification?
Game over. Game
Right.
over. Lights out.
And
You've
if
just
God
been
doesn't have a reason to
completely
believe it, why ought
obliterated.
we believe it? Right? So I don't think that's going to be theologically very sound.
Yeah, I mean, God would have to have some kind of justification for
It's
believing that his knowledge is infallible.
yeah, and I just don't see how he could have it.